Okay, let's talk about slasher movies. Not like the cultural impact or what it says about us, but let's do the most pedantic and annoying thing. Let's categorize them into ages, like comic books. Silver Age, Bronze Age, that bullshit. I guess the first question would be, what classifies as a slasher? I could go through all the arbitrary rules like I'm Randy fucking Meeks.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie.
I could say things like it must have a mass killer stalking victims, there has to be a body count, there has to be a final girl, but in truth, that's all bullshit. I'm gonna go with the Potter Stewart line. I know it when I see it. Trust me, I know a slasher when I see it. Since I've gotten that out of the way, what is the first slasher movie? Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Blood and Black Lace, Psycho?
None of the above. Peeping Tom, 1960, directed by Michael Powell.
Fuck you, Scream 4. I defend you to people and you betray me. For me, 1974's Black Christmas. Look, I know. It's a little debated when slasher movies really start, but this is the first movie that had all the pieces together. The basic plot of the movie is a mysterious man sneaks into the attic of a sorority house during Christmas break and slowly kills off the sorority sisters. It's awesome. Gruesome, especially for the time. The phone calls I still find unsettling. By the way, the guy who made this also made A Christmas Story, which kind of makes sense.
Ho, ho, ho. And what's your name, little boy?
Anyway, Black Christmas made a modest profit, but wasn't a huge hit. However, one man was a fan, a young filmmaker by the name of John Carpenter.
The film I'm making now, Halloween, hopefully will be is a horror film.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Who doesn't love Halloween? Now this movie is a classic. This is what kickstarted the slasher craze. Like all the original slashers are ripping from this movie. This is what Halloween would have been if Michael had a twin brother and an incompetent director. This movie literally has the exact same plot. They didn't even try. I've never seen this before. This period will be called the Golden Age of Slashers. Now, Halloween came out and it was the highest grossing independent film of all time, which I think it was eventually beaten out by My Big Fat Greek Wedding, which is horrifying in its own special way. Now, when a movie makes a metric shit ton of money, a lot of things start happening in Hollywood. Every movie producer is desperate to copy. Think about after Lord of the Rings came out, or Harry Potter. We were inundated with terrible fantasy movies ripping them off, like Narnia, Golden Compass, or, oh god, Eragon. Does anybody remember that piece of shit? Here we go! If you want to look at a more recent example, look at the current hellscape of superhero movies we have been in since the Avengers. Like, who is going to see Madam Webb? Who is that for?
Ezekiel Sims. He was in the Amazon with my mom when she was researching spiders right before she died.
Thinking about it just makes me want to blow my brains out. I'm getting off topic. Let's go back to my happy place. So after Halloween, slashers came hard and fast. There's the obvious Friday the 13th, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. Within 5 years, theaters were flooded with slashers. They were cheap to make and almost always turned a profit. For God's sakes, these people made a Friday the 13th movie every year during the 80s, and the American audience lapped it up.
Did you know that this was an R-rated movie when you brought him?
Yes, we did.
Are you sorry you brought him?
Yes.
The biggest trends during this period was a human killer, usually going for some misguided revenge that is happening on some holiday. It almost always takes place on a holiday. Like, what the fuck? Halloween taking place on a holiday is not what made it popular.
That isn't cranberry sauce, Artie. That is not cranberry sauce.
But then, from the darkness and making shitty pornos, came something new. Wes Craven had the genius idea. How great is the idea of Nightmare on Elm Street? A killer who comes for you in your dreams, but when he kills you in your dreams, you die for real. Now, I'm not gonna come on here and say this movie's a masterpiece. It's not. Some of the acting doesn't work. I'm looking at you, Nancy's mom. and some of the effects look cheap. The movie is so fucking rad, though. I don't understand how you could hate it. The quality is irrelevant, though. What matters is how the film changed the slasher genre. They went from being about mass killers to being about a supernatural force. We have officially entered the Silver Age. Look at Friday the 13th and Halloween, where Jason and Michael went from being a mentally challenged killer and a psychopath, and then became a zombie and a literal fucking demon controlled by a cult. Halloween 6 is so awesome. It has Paul Rudd giving a terrible performance, cult followers, and an incest baby. That's a different video. There were also new slashers coming out like Child's Play and Candyman. Child's Play is a voodoo Cabbage Patch doll, and Candyman is like a cursed ghost. I'm not really sure. Compare that to Michael Myers, a guy with a mask. These are clearly more supernaturally focused. Now, if we know anything about movie trends, it's that Hollywood is going to milk it until they kill it. So anyways, sequels in general really started to flood the market. Jason got 9, Freddy got 6, Michael got 5. There was too many of them, and they just started to suck. And it killed slasher movies and horror in general. Burn it all down. We're done here. And then from the ashes came a young screenwriter by the name of Kevin Williamson. Late one night after watching a serial killer documentary, he came up with a great idea. He used his knowledge of slasher movies to create a new type of horror movie.
Hello?
We're talking about Scream, baby. And we just entered the Bronze Age of slashers. This movie was fucking huge. We got Wes Craven in the director's chair making his comeback to horror.
This is one of the most influential figures in contemporary horror.
The movie is basically using a murder mystery format of like the old slasher movies with a meta-analysis of characters within the movie. The characters in Scream have seen horror movies and realize they themselves are in one.
Ever, under any circumstances, say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back.
I'm getting another beer. You want one?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back!
The meta aspect may not seem like that big of a deal to a modern audience, with movies like Cabin in the Woods, Tucker, Dale vs. Evil, or anything by Charlie Kaufman that lean far heavier into the self-referential narrative, but at the same time, no movie had done this. Now, the movie is not perfect. It has some technical issues, like the mask changes to the shittier K&B mask sometimes, and there's that dumbass scene where Ghostface stalks them in broad daylight. But the movie is a classic on the level of the original Halloween. So everything connected to Kevin Williamson was immediately greenlit, and there was a whole series of slashers trying to ape off of Scream. These movies were all murder mysteries and starred a lot of hot, young, and up-and-coming TV actors. In general, if you're watching a slasher and it feels like Dawson's Creek, it's from this period. Now, this tired itself out way quicker than before. In a couple years, slashers would be dead. Mainly because most of them sucked, although I am a defender of Cherry Falls and Scream 2. Now we have to talk about Michael Bay. I don't want to. But the story of slashers unfortunately can't be fully told without him. Needless to say, in the early 2000s, Michael Bay had enough clout and money to create his own studio, which he called Platinum Dunes. During this moment, the horror landscape is about to change again. From paranormal Japanese girls like The Ring and Grudge to torture porn like Saw and Hostel. Right on the cusp of that, Platinum Dunes released its first movie, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003, the one with Jessica Biel. The movie was very slick, well made, and was fresh for the time, but also looked gross and focused on the gore, all soon to be hallmarks of the torture porn subgenre, which I don't really mind the torture porn, at least the good ones. But the other two major trends this movie helped push, I'm not really a fan of. First, they would always hire music video directors who knew how to competently shoot a movie, but were bland and didn't have a specific style. The other major trend was the real problem.
Halloween, Texas Chainsaw, Dawn of the Dead, Hills Have,
Yes,
Amityville,
remakes.
Last House on Friday the
And we have officially entered the remake age of slashers. Remakes are the worst. Not all, of course, but as a general rule, remakes suck and are by definition inferior to the originals. As we've previously discussed how studios react to something making money, anything with a recognizable name that they could get their hands on was remade. I'm not going to go through the list, but it's a graveyard, a horror show, a genocide of creativity. The only good thing that came out of this is if anything was remade during this period, the original was probably pretty good. So you should go back and watch that one. By the 2010s, this of course died, like everything does. slashers were once again on ice. Now I guess we should talk about Jason Blum, the super producer whose movies you have definitely seen if you've seen any horror movie in the past decade. He helped push several horror franchises like Paranormal Activity and Purge. Both are trash, by the way, which doesn't really matter because they made him a shitload of money and made him very powerful to the point where his studio, A24, and James Wan with the Conjuring universe completely control our modern American horror. Now the next major factor is Star Wars The Force Awakens. Look, I know what you're thinking, like, it hasn't been popular to bitch about Star Wars on YouTube for like 5 years. Shut the fuck up. I'm not complaining about Star Wars. My point is, Star Wars 7 popularized the soft reboot / requel, which I guess I should explain what that is. A requel is a mix between a remake and a sequel. The plot is so similar to the first movie that it might as well be called a remake, but the twist is it's a sequel, and many of the original casts are coming back, often in smaller roles. So with that as our Hollywood landscape, two comedy boys had an idea and brought it to Jason Blum. That's how we ended up with Halloween 2018, which brings us into the modern age of slashers. Halloween, the 2018 one. God damn it, I hate the way modern movies are named. But it basically has the plot of the original. Michael Myers escapes an asylum, returns to his hometown to commit a murder spree. Except for this time, Laurie, the main character from the first one, has been waiting 40 years for him. This movie was a huge hit, created a whole trilogy of movies, and brought back slasher staples like Scream and Candyman to get soft rebooted themselves. There was also this bizarre horror trend of taking different older movies that weren't horror movies and then stapling slashers onto them. Happy Death Day is Groundhog Day. Freaky is Freaky Friday. It's a Wonderful Knife is It's a Wonderful Life. You also get movies that are basically remakes with slightly different premises. X is basically Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or Thanksgiving is basically My Bloody Valentine. Both are pretty rad, by the way. So that's where we're currently at, and we'll see how the new Friday the 13th TV show or Scream 7 does. It seems to be in hell right now, but I kind of feel the critical failure of Halloween Ends has really started the end of this era, but only time will see. Let's do a quick overview of the different eras of slashers using the film series Halloween, the only slasher series that has at least one entry in every era. We got the golden age of slashers, which includes Halloween 1, 2, and 4. Just a man in a mask killing teens. The basics. Halloween 3 isn't a slasher film, although it is awesome and stars Tom Atkins, my hero.
Get the 12 gauge out of my car. Now.
Then the Silver Age, with Halloween 5 and 6. This is where they started adding supernatural elements like curses and cults. They are insane and terrible, but totally worth watching. Then the Bronze Age of slashers, with Halloween H2O 20 years later. One of the worst titles of any movie ever, is just ripping off Scream. And Halloween Resurrection, which I would avoid, though Tyra does dance her ass off in it. Then the Remake Age with Rob Zombie's terrible fucking Halloween movies, with elements of torture porn. Then, last, we have the Modern Age, with the most recent Halloween trilogy. Alright, with that I'm done. I'm not really sure how to end the